What's up, brother? Can
Peter
you hear me all right?
Slipperly Pete Barrett, how you
Hey,
doing, man?
good, thanks. Can you hear me all right, though? I know I'm driving, but this is the only time with wrestling practice and training.
Oh, no problem, no problem. As long as I'm not putting you in risk here at all.
Well, I do this quite often, unfortunately.
You know what? I believe it is kind of a part of the MMA fighter life when you have to do interviews. It's normally when you're in your car, so
Yeah, it's like the only downtime during daylight hours.
for sure, man. But I appreciate you coming on, taking the time, and we'll get started here. So, um, you started your career in 2011, I believe. So I just want to get to know you here. So what influenced you to get into MMA in the first place?
So, you know, I, let's set the scene. I graduated from high school in 2005. I wrestled all through high school. I wasn't like, an All American or anything crazy like that, but I was definitely a high level performer, captain of the team. Um, so that was 2005. That was like Ultimate Fighter one, two, three, right around that time when everything was getting really big. And it was always kind of like a pipe dream and an idea like, oh, is this something that I could do? So, um, I went to college, played with the idea of it, played rugby, was like, I don't know. Rugby finished up, and one of my buddies was like, hey, there's this really talented kid teaching Muay Thai downtown, and I went to school out in Denver, and turned out it was this kid Brandon Thatch, who's a UFC veteran, and at the time he was still up and coming, but went down to the gym, started learning some Muay Thai, started learning some jiu-jitsu, started using my wrestling again, and really just fell in love with it, and thought that this is a way that I could, stay athletic, stay competitive, and for the rest of my life, and really just enjoy it. And then one thing led to another. I moved home after college, started training at a gym around here. My cousin at the time was already fighting as an amateur, and I said, "Hey, listen, you drive by my house every day to get to the gym. Why don't you pick me up on your way, and we'll do this damn thing together." And I took a fight. I lost my first fight. I fell in love with it, and I haven't really looked back since. It was a way for me to stay competitive. It was a way for me to stay athletic. It was a hobby until it became a lifestyle, but it was a good, healthy hobby. Around that time, I've lost more friends than I would like to I'm like to say to overdoses and drug problems, friends, family. Like heroin and opiates hit really hard out here. And back
Yeah.
then, it was like a lot of people would go work and they go sit in the bar for a few hours. They go home, rinse, wash, and repeat. And like that wasn't a lifestyle that I was really content with. That wasn't a lifestyle that I really wanted. And fighting really gave me something that I could focus on in the meantime and try to build a career around. And now it's the center of my life. I mean, I love it. It's my universe. And I'm grateful for everything that I had to go through to get here. But it just, it got a hold of me, and I fell in love with it.
That's good to hear, man. And that being said, I mean, it sounds like all the pieces, just like the pieces of the puzzle, just all came together for you when you started.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
Oh,
And
that's fair.
and I mean, most of your fights, even including your amateur, have been with the Cage Titans. Do you feel like you kind of have a bit of that, like that star status within that organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Cage Titans. I love the Cage Titans community. MMA in New England before Cage Titans was really like a derelict event. Would never think you were going to bring your family to go watch MMA. There were just as many fights in the crowds as there were in the cage. It was just like, your outlawish type of people that were attracted. And now, like, Cage Titans, there are whole families there watching their brother or sister compete because they're supporting their family, and it's a really welcoming community, and it's not the stereotype. They were like paramount in changing the community around MMA in Massachusetts, and that was right about the time that I started fighting, and I saw the horror shows in the other community, in the other promotions, and Mike Bover was just the guy that I knew I could stand behind and build my career around um, with a level of certainty. There were a lot of promotions where you'd fight in June and you wouldn't get paid until the guy had his next show in September when he had ticket sales from the next show to pay for the last show. And it was just, it was unpredictable. And now, you've also got promotions like CES that do a really good job as well, but being a part of Cage Titans from beginning to now has really put my face on the front of their promotion. And, I would imagine that all the fans that go, recognize me, love to watch me fight, love to support me. And I've always felt very welcome in that community. And they've always done a great job supporting their fighters at the next level. I made my debut during COVID, so it wasn't really a possibility. But every other fighter that came from Cage Titans that made their debut, the owner of Cage Titans organized a group, rented a bunch of vans, drove a bunch of people out there so they could go support their fighter. He does a bang up job, really. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the kind of guy I want to be associated with. That's the type of person I want to be able to have, my name in the same conversation as them. Some other guys out there, they start to, have you fought for this guy? And you're like, oh, don't even put my name in the same sentence as that guy. He's bad news, But a guy like Mike Pulver and Cage Titans, like, we grew and came up together. So it's been awesome.
And it really sounds like they really take care of you.
Oh, 100%. Mike is a very, very smart guy. And, I think Manny Bermudez was the first Cage Titans guy to get signed to the UFC. And Mike went out there to corner him, acting as his manager. And the second he got behind the scenes in the UFC, this motherfucker was taking notes, writing things down, seeing how things were run. He'd come home and he'd implement it on his level to the best of his ability. And every time he went out and saw more and more of how the UFC handled their stuff, he started implementing it on his level to make the shows run better, run smoother. And this is a guy that, he used to do everything himself because he didn't trust anybody else to do it because he wanted it done a very specific way, but realizing to grow, you have to have other people within your organization that you can trust to handle things. And once he saw that, made that decision, he's been, blowing the show. Like, he just does better every show, every opportunity he gets. Something's improving and something's getting better with the way he runs it. So yeah, I could talk those guys up. I could talk him out for days. I've been super grateful to have the opportunity to fight for him.
Excellent. And now I think it's no secret how crazy fans can get in Boston, but obviously you haven't allowed your fights in Plymouth, just down the road, really. So describe what are the fans like at these shows? Describe the atmosphere.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of touched on it. Let's go back 7 or 8 years, 10 years. MMA was like, fringe, nobody wanted anything to do with it. Nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody liked the clientele. Nobody liked the fan base.
100%.
And you'd get the worst of the worst. You'd get the derelicts. You'd get the dregs of society because that's where those types of people congregate. But, Mike Pulver, having fought for some of these promotions and seeing how terribly they were run, he said, I can do a better job than all of these guys that are hosting fights right now. And that's how he got into the business. And he really went hard to change the community of fans around the events. Like I said, like, we have families in attendance, kids in attendance, children in attendance. Fights do happen from time to time, but it's a rare occurrence now. The nights usually go off without a hitch. We have got a great community. It's always the same people coming back to support the fighters. He does such a good job with the show. Like, maybe you bought a ticket to go see an amateur, but you had such a good time. Now you just go buy tickets at the door every time they have an event because it was such an enjoyable experience. And, like, they do a really good job where, the ticket might be anywhere from $65 to $150, but he's putting on anywhere from 15 to 20 shows at any given time. So you've got a whole night. So if you don't want to get there until the pro fights, you go out to dinner on the waterfront in Plymouth and show up around 10 and still catch 6 or 7 fights by the end of the night.
That's awesome.
So he does a really good job building a welcoming community around the fights, and it's like, how do I want to, like, there's no single use relationships. We're building trust in each other, and he wants sponsors to come back and sponsors to be happy that they're a part of it. He just does a really good job building the community around that.
And I respect that, because with some of these fight cards, you only get maybe 6 or 7 fights on the entire card, not just main card, entire card. And it sucks that you kind of have to rush people to get in if you want to get your money's worth. But you got guys like the guys that you're talking about. I mean, you put on 15, 20 fights, you don't have to worry about getting to a certain fight. You can go and you can make your Friday, Saturday night out of the entire night.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he's doing a show in June, and he can only put on 6 fights because we can only have so many fans in attendance. And if he wants to put on, he would be limiting the amount of fans that would be able to come because of the restrictions on the capacity. And like, I mean, if I'm selling tickets to a fight, I can sell anywhere from 150 to 200 tickets, no problem. And that's already 3/4 of the capacity of the event that he's hosting at. So he has to cut down the card because of the fans, not because of anything else. And it's going to be a small show, but it's still going to be a show. And I mean, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean, we're just making the best of that situation.
That's awesome. Great to hear. Now let's just kind of talk a little bit about Sityodtong Boston. I probably said it wrong.
Yeah, no sweat. Everybody says it wrong. No sweat.
Can you how do you say it?
So it's Sityodtong, and that's just the school. Like the Thai translation would be the school of Tong. So Master Tong had started Sityodtong, and he was responsible for the revival of Muay Thai in Thailand, which is
beautiful.
awesome.
And
he had a huge. Sorry,
go ahead. I interrupt you.
So he just he did a lot of work with the King of Thailand and bringing it to a sporting event and building up the stadiums and all that. But Sityodtong has a really unique history with the sport of Muay Thai in Thailand.
It's kind of nice that they pay homage to such a person in the sport of Muay Thai.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's it's as traditional as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, but it's a little different in the fact that there's really no belting systems. Some of the schools out here do have a system to award people based off the of the sport, but Muay Thai school, the Prajayit, or of your man, why I was just out there. I'm like shooting myself in the foot. Your Mongol, the color of your Mongol and your Prajayits are the color of your school, not anything based on ranking within the school. So if your school colors are red and black, all of your stuff is decorated. Your school is blue and green, you're in blue and green. But the westernized follow the belt system of the sport, you know what I
mean? Mm-hmm. And talking about Coach Mark DellaGrotte, I mean, like, great coach. I mean, describe the guy. Like, what is it like to be able to train with a coach like him?
So Crew Mark is awesome. He's super high level. He's been, a pioneer within the sport,
Absolutely.
within the UFC, and he just brings a level of expertise that's really hard to match. And he can walk into Sityodtong at any given moment, at any given time, regardless of who's teaching, and he can add to the conversation and deepen your understanding of the techniques that are being taught. So, I mean, it's just, and he's a fucking character as a human being. I love him.
Absolutely.
He's a good friend of mine. We were just at another instructor over there, Andy. We were at his wedding recently together. I mean, we had a blast. We're friends in the gym. We're friends outside of the gym. We have a great relationship as fighters and as coaches, and also as peers. I bring a little bit of boxing flavor to my stuff, and he keeps it fresh with all the martial arts that he's got. I mean, he's studied under some greats. He's belted in I think up to 11 different martial arts. very, 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 technical with like the Silat and Jeet Kune Do and a whole gamut of martial arts. But he's just like an OG of wisdom in the
Mhm.
fighting community. It's awesome.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I swear I thought I see him play himself as a character in a movie. I'm trying to think of it.
So he was in Here Comes the Boom, which
That's
is
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the Kevin James movie, and they Boss Rudin takes Kevin James to Sityodtong to become an MMA fighter, and Mark DellaGrotte and all the guys at that table are all pioneers in the New England MMA scene,
One hundred
and some,
percent.
and MMA abroad as well. But one like so crew Mark DellaGrotte was in there. One of my other coaches who was under crew Mark at the when he fought Mike Varner, he's got a couple cameos, but they got everybody from the local community and got him extras in the film. It was cool.
That's pretty sweet. I mean, being able to see your own coach in a movie like that and being able to pretty much play like himself. Like, I mean, depicting like his character playing himself in that movie, is that literally how he's like in real life, or was it a little bit embellished?
Um, I'm trying to remember him more specifically in that movie because it's been a while since I've watched it. But like, I'm pretty sure he got paid to be himself in the movie. And he is over the top. He is loud. He's a character. I love him. And he brings a big energy and he's super enthusiastic and he loves what he does. And you can tell by, his presence and energy that he brings forth with it. So yeah, I would say that's pretty close to who he was as he is in the movie.
Excellent. And more about you now. So, you've had a chance to fight at featherweight and lightweight. Where do you feel better fighting at?
Man, I think I'm a little bit stronger at lightweight, but I think I give up a little bit of size at lightweight. And at featherweight, I'm always the bigger, stronger competitor.
Mhm.
But then with my fight with Zalal, he was this scrawny little motherfucker that I couldn't chase. He just ran the whole time. So it,
Yeah.
there's a cost benefit analysis at both, but I think I've performed my best at 145.
Yeah, and a lot of players I talk to, that there's the idea about size advantage and how if you feel good and you can cut down to a certain weight, there's no reason why you can't, and you
Right.
should take advantage.
Definitely. I mean, does it speak against me? I don't know. I got kicked in the face in the opening minute of the round. I think Zalal is a natural bantam. I think he fights at 145 because he likes to fight often and he likes to fight regularly. I think
Mhm.
like 5 out of his last 6 fights have all been last minute fill-ins, and that's what he does. He does well there, But I don't think he cuts much weight. There's no way he'd be able to pick up a fight on 3 weeks' notice if he was cutting any sort of weight. But again, cost benefit. He probably feels better, feels stronger, feels healthier at 145 than he does at 135, and it's been working for him.
Talking
So
about another past opponent, you talked about Zizal, and a guy like Chase Super. Obviously, he got the win over you. It's never fun losing, but I mean, looking at a kid like that, a young kid, do you think it's a little too early for him to be in the UFC? I mean, very young.
no, I don't. I think jujitsu, that would be like saying, hey, uh, Glover Teixeira, man, I think he's a little old to be getting punched in the head, but he does manage to find ways to win with his jiu-jitsu, but I think he's too old. Like jiu-jitsu is like that back door. If the kid's a world champion brown belt, like he'll hook his way through. I think Combat America or one of a few of the big tournaments. Like he's no slouch. And jiu-jitsu is that good and that sneaky. Like I think his striking could improve. Fuck yeah, I lit that kid up the whole time. I exposed him in a lot of ways, and he took a beating for it. But his jujitsu is uncanny. I think it works. I can attest to it. If he doesn't belong in the UFC because his striking isn't good enough, but his jiu-jitsu is, then I don't belong in the UFC because my striking is good enough and maybe my jiu-jitsu isn't. And my jiu-jitsu is phenomenal, but it's not at world champion level. You know, his jujitsu is. His striking isn't at world champion level, just much like my jujitsu is. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So I think that's why it's mixed martial arts, and that's we don't stick to one discipline.
100%. And so I saw your post. You're making the big announcement, returning to Cage Titans. So, if I can ask, do you have an opponent yet?
Um, no, we're working on someone, but we haven't got anything finalized, so I can't drop any hints.
Of course. No, but with this, is this going to be a big fight? Is this going to be possibly title fight? Can you share anything?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, they told me, hey, if you can get together some wins, we'd love to have you back. So my goal is to go out, get a couple wins this summer, stay healthy, stay active, stay fit, stay light, and get back in the UFC octagon by the end of the year. You know, that being said, I can't fight any trash cans. I can't fight any any layups or anything like that. I'm way past that point in my career. So we're looking at someone uh, winning record, coming off a couple wins. You know, building up a little bit of momentum. I'm a great fight for them. They're a great fight for me. So I the people that we are looking at, my perspective, I'm better than all of them. I'm gonna fuck them all up. But again, I think it's I'm a good fight for anybody because I'm coming off a loss, being cut from the UFC. I could be a win that would make them say, "Hey, you just cut him and I just beat him. Maybe you should be looking at me." So I think I'm a good
Mhm.
fight for anybody. It would. I think a lot of people would take that fight.
And I mean, obviously, you revealed your plans, what you would like to do by the end of the year, get a couple wins, and return to the UFC. So, what kind of statement are you going to be making coming back to Cage Titans for all these other guys?
I'm looking to get in and out in under a minute. I'm going in there to fuck some people up, get my hand raised, get out of there, and get back to work on Monday. You know, time is not of the essence in this game. I'm an old man, and I know I've got a few years of fight left in me, and I want it to be at the top of the pack. So I'm going to go in there, grab some kid, make light work of them, and let everybody know that the top dog's still around.
Excellent. And just one more for you. I know you just mentioned, a few more years you might have. So, what's an ideal age you want to retire at? Injuries happen, things happen, but what would be ideal for you?
And I'm pulling that whole Tom Brady plan. So I could see myself fighting into my 40s. I'll definitely retire from MMA with a competitive jiu-jitsu lifestyle. But as far as fighting is concerned, I'm 30. I'll be 35 this summer. As long as I
Mhm.
stick to my game plan, I know, right? Sounds old, but I could easily fight into my 40s.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I understand that you have another thing coming up here, so I'll let you go. Thanks for taking the time to come on here, Peter. It's been a pleasure having you on, and good luck with whenever your next coming fight, or excuse me, when your upcoming fight comes.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.